Chapter 7: Influence and Significance of the Spiritual Teachings. The effect of the revelations. Here before this word there is no man who does not tremble both inside and outside his being, that is to say, in spirit and flesh. Here upon hearing me is when each one thinks of life, of death, of divine justice, of eternity, of spiritual life, and of good and evil. Here is where on hearing my voice each feels within himself the presence of his spirit and remembers from where he comes. Listening to me, each feels for those moments identified with all his fellows, recognizing them in the depths of their being as his true brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters in spiritual eternity, closer still than those who are such only in the flesh, for that is transitory upon the earth. There is no man or woman who hearing me does not feel my eyes upon them, and so none dare hide or dissimulate from me their blemishes, and I point them out, but not publicly, for I am the judge who never shames publicly. I tell you that among you I have discovered adultery, infanticide, robbery, vices, and defects that are like leprosy on the spirit of he who has sinned. But I do not come merely to prove to you the truth of my word, by demonstrating that I can uncover the failures of your heart. I wish to show you also the power of my lessons, giving you the arms to defeat evil and temptation, showing you how to achieve regeneration, awakening in your being a yearning for all that is good, elevated and pure, and an absolute revulsion for all that is ignoble, all that is false, and for all that is bad for the spirit. Today you still live the shadowed days that precede the light. Nonetheless, that light, taking advantage of the small clear spots in your cloudy sky, shines through with brief rays that reach some points on the earth, touching hearts and shaking and awakening the spirits. All that have been surprised by this light have stopped in their path to ask, "Who are you?" And I have answered, "I am the light of the world. I am the light of eternity. I am truth and love. I am he who promised to return to speak to you, he whom they said was the word of God." Like Saul on the road to Damascus, they have humiliated all their haughtiness, have beaten down their pride, and humbly bowed their faces to say from the heart, "My Father and Lord, forgive me. Now I understand that without knowing it, I was persecuting you." From that instant, those hearts have become small followers, for in this third era, until this moment, there has not appeared among my new disciples an apostle of the level of he who so persecuted me in my disciples, only to later love me with such intensity. The religion sleep the sleep of centuries of routine and stagnation, while the truth has remained hidden. But those that know that the commandments of Jehovah and the words of the Divine Master shall have to recognize in this voice that speaks to you now, the voice of the Spirit of truth promised for these times. I know that many will feel scandalized when they hear this word, but it shall be those who in their confusion do not wish to recognize that in man there exists, in addition to his human nature, a part that is spiritual, or they who, believing in the human spirit, but wielded to the routine of their traditions and beliefs, deny the existence of a path of infinite evolution of the spirit. For the spirit, these words I will leave written, and they will come to my disciples in the future, and they, upon studying them, will find them fresh and alive, and their spirit shall tremble with pleasure at the feeling that their Master speaks to them at that instant. Do you believe that all I have told you would be only for those who have heard me? No, beloved people. With my word, I am speaking to those present and to those absent, for those of today, tomorrow, and all time, for those who have died, for those who live and for those who have yet to be born. Hope and understanding of the new word. I am the word of love that comes to comfort those who suffer, the troubled, they who weep, the sinner, and he or she who has sought for me. And my word in those hearts is the river where they calm their thirst and cleanse their impurities, is also the way that leads to the eternal dwelling of rest and peace. How can you imagine that the struggle of life, its sacrifices, vicissitudes, and trials end in death without finding a just reward in eternity? It is therefore that my law and my doctrine, with its revelations and promises, are for your hearts the motivation, the caress and the balm of this life's journey. Only when you depart from my teachings do you feel hungry and weak. In my divine love for these human creatures, I have permitted them to scrutinize my works and to take from all that has been created, so that none might have motive to say that God is unjust because he hides his wisdom from his children. Although I formed you and gave you the gift of free will, I have respected it in spite of the fact that man, abusing that freedom, has offended me and profaned my law. Today I come to make you feel the caress of my forgiveness, illuminating your spirit with the light of my wisdom, so that one by one my children return to the path of truth. The Spirit of truth, which is my light, shines in the conscience, because you find yourselves in the foretold times in which every mystery would be explained, so that you may comprehend that which until now has not been interpreted as it should. I have come to communicate on this spot on earth, and I will leave my word as a gift for all men. This gift will remove spiritual poverty from humanity. I will inspire in all the true form of adoration of God as well as the way to live according to the divine law, whose fulfillment is the only thing that God will recognize in each of you. Finally, O humanity, you will know the content and essence of my word. Then you will find that my doctrine is not only the divine voice which speaks to men, but also the expression of all the spirits. My word is the voice that encourages, it is the cry of freedom and the anchor of salvation. The power of the Word of God. My doctrine develops man in all his aspects. It sensitizes and enables his heart, awakens and deepens his mind, and perfects and elevates his spirit. Make a profound study of my doctrine to permit you to understand the right way to practice my teachings, so that your development will be harmonious, so that you do not develop your mind alone without concern for the ideals of the Spirit which you should encourage. All the potentials of your being can find in my word the luminous road on which they can grow and perfect themselves infinitely. My doctrine is essentially spiritual. It is light and strength that descends and penetrates your spirit to make it victorious in its combat against evil. My word is not merely for the amusement of the ear, it is the light of the Spirit. Do you wish to hear me with the Spirit, so that it is the Spirit who is sustained and takes advantage of the essence of this teaching? Clean your heart, clear your mind, and let your conscience be your guide. You will see then how in your being there will begin to be a transformation, not only spiritual, but also moral and of the body. That elevation that the spirit gains with knowledge, that cleanliness that it reaches, is reflected in the sentiments of the heart and the health of the body. Passions will become weaker, vices will begin to disappear, and fanaticism and ignorance will give way to true faith and profound knowledge of my law. This doctrine, known by a few and unknown by humanity in general, will soon come as a balm over all who suffer, to offer comfort, kindle faith, disperse the darkness, and inculcate hope. It shall raise you above sin, misery, pain, and death. It can be no other way, for it is I, the divine doctor, the promised comforter, who has come to reveal it to you. When you have been spiritualized and you find yourself with men who suffer and are desperate because they cannot have that which they desire in the world, you will see how their materialism contrasts with the elevation of my disciples, whose conformity shall be great, because their ambitions and yearnings shall be noble, based in the firm conviction that in this life all is transitory. My disciples will speak to the world with examples of spirituality through a life that struggles to bring the spirit closer to the divinity instead of being chained to the false riches of the world. I know that the materialists of future times will be scandalized upon hearing this doctrine, but their conscience will tell them that my word speaks only truth. On the great journey that awaits you, I shall be your Cyrene. Simon of Cyrene helped Jesus carry the cross to Calvary. My doctrine will cause great revolutions in the world. There will be great transformations in customs and ideas, and even in nature there will be changes. All of this shall signal the beginning of a new era for humanity, and the spirits who in a short time I sent to earth will speak of these prophecies to help with the restoration and elevation of this world, explain my word, and analyze events. This third era is a time of resurrection. The spirits had seemed dead, and the bodies their sepulchres, but the Master has come before them, whose word of life speaks to them, saying, Arise, and rise to the light, to freedom. He who upon opening his eyes to the truth knows how to elevate his life, his works, and his feelings in love for his brothers, shall cease to look at this world as a veil of tears and atonement, for he will have begun to feel the joy of the true peace that comes from serenity. The state of elevation in this life shall be a reflection of the perfect peace and light that the Spirit will go to enjoy in the better mansions, where I myself will receive them and award them hospitality worthy of their merits. Reaction of theologians and materialists. Do not be disturbed when they tell you that he who has spoken to you during the Spirit has been the tempter, and that it was foretold that he would also perform miracles, with which he would perturb and confuse the very chosen ones. Truly I say to you, the many who think in that way about my manifestation will be those who actually are in the service of evil and in darkness, although their lips try to assure that they are always spreading the truth. Do not forget that the tree is known by its fruits, and I say to you, the fruit is this word which has come to vibrate through the faculties of these spokesmen, men and women of simple heart, by the fruits and spiritual progress of those who have tasted it. Mankind will recognize that I am the tree. The spiritual, Trinitarian, Marian doctrine will be spread, causing a real alarm among many who believingly studied and understood the lessons which they had previously received from the Father, have become conceited with the knowledge of their philosophies and their sciences, unaware of the spiritual evolution that mankind has reached. On awakening from their lethargy, they will become aware of the manner in which the spirit of man thinks and feels today. They will hurl anathemas against what they call new ideas, and they will declare that this movement is being provoked by the Antichrist. Then they will go back to the scriptures, to the prophecies, and to my word, which I gave you during the second era, to try to combat my new manifestation, my new lessons, and all that I promised, and which today I am fulfilling. through the lips of my disciples and by means of writings, my word will reach even those who admit nothing beyond what is material or from their knowledge and concepts which they have already accepted, and they will call me a false god for bringing you this word. But when you hear this, even if your heart feels hurt, your faith will not suffer any discouragement, recalling with emotion that your Master already had announced it to you and strengthened you with his word to resist those tests. On the other hand, I say that even if along your way you find falsity, hypocrisy, superstition, religious fanaticism, and idolatry, do not judge anyone because of his errors. Instruct them with my word and leave their cause to me. For I am the only one who judges you and who knows who is the false God, the false Christ, the unrighteous apostle, the hypocritical Pharisee. The war of ideas, creeds, religions, doctrines, philosophies, theories, and sciences shall come, and my name and doctrine shall be in every mouth. My new coming will be argued and judged, and from that shall arise great believers proclaiming that Christ has been again among men. At those moments from the infinite, I shall encourage those hearts and perform prodigies where they pass to strengthen their faith. The effect of spiritualism. My light, on being spread over the universe, has given origin to the seeking of my truth in all doctrines, and that is the reason for the positioning of men in their different beliefs. It is the fulfillment of that which was prophesied. Who is it that bears truth? Who in the clothing of a sheep hides a ravening wolf? Who is he that by clean clothing ensures absolute purity within? You must practice spiritualism to find my truth, for humanity has divided into as many beliefs and ideas as evolution has had the mind of men, and so sects and religions have been formed, and it will be very difficult for you to judge the truth that exists in each one of them. My doctrine illuminates the thoughts and ideas of man, and little by little will understand the basis for perfecting his works, channeling them through a more perfect and elevated path. The moment will come when every sect and religion will scrutinize itself to find that which belongs to my work. But to find this treasure, it will be necessary for them to elevate their spirits and hear the voice of the conscience. Many religions exist on this earth, but none of them will unite men nor make them love one another. It will be my spiritual doctrine that performs this work. In vain will the world oppose the advance of this light. When the persecution of my disciples is at its most intense, the elements will be unleashed, but shall be calmed by the prayer of these laborers, so that humanity may behold an example of the powers that I have given them. The world will tremble when my word is heard in the nations, for the spirit of humanity that is prepared for this revelation will vibrate with pleasure and at the same time fear. Then let he who wishes to know the truth free himself of the slavery of his materialistic ideas and recreate himself before the luminous horizons that will be presented to his sight. But let those who persist in obfuscation and the struggle against the light remain free to do so. The conversion to spirituality will bring friendship and brotherhood between nations, but it is necessary that you prepare, for the contest will be great. If men rise in wars, it is not because this is my will, but because they have not understood the law of God. The time of universal judgment has arrived, and I shall judge all works and all religions. From the spirit of man a clamor will rise, for all that is false will be uncovered. The truth shall shine alone. The awakening shall be among men, and it is then that men will say to me, Father, give us your support, give us a true light to guide us. And that light and support will be the doctrine of the Holy Spirit, the teaching that I have given you, which belongs also to them and to all, for I am the Father of one and all. The importance of the new revelation. In appearance, this revelation contains nothing grand, yet you shall see the importance it will have among humanity. Among these people are disciples of every type. Some see a glimpse of the magnitude of this work and foresee the commotion that its appearance will provoke in the world. Others are content to believe that this is a good path, and there are others who do not manage to perceive the greatness of this doctrine and doubt its triumph and its establishment in the hearts of men. I tell you that it is a jewel that I have entrusted to you, whose divine sparks you have not wished to see, because you have not analyzed my teaching. Do not forget that already in that time the word of Christ has doubted, for men stopped to judge its origin, and the tire of Jesus, and on finding that the son of a Nazarene carpenter and a humble woman who would later raise up a group of poor Galilean fishermen to preach a doctrine that seemed strange to them, they could not believe that this traveler, who went from town to town, showing the humility of his vestments, was the king that the Lord had promised to the people of Israel. I make these explanations to you because men are given to seeking the outward shininess that confuses the senses, to believe in the greatness of that which should be seen and felt only with the Spirit. I had to spill my blood, give up my life, and rise again so that men would open their eyes. From what cup do you now wish my spirit to drink for you to believe me? Humanity, what would I not do to see you saved? Who comes to say that my doctrine is a danger to the material progress of humanity commits thereby a grave error. I, the Master of Masters, come to teach humanity the road to their evolution and true progress. My word does not speak only to the spirit, but also to the mind, the reason, and even to the very senses. My doctrine does not only come to inspire you and to show you spiritual life, but also to give light to all science and in all fields. For my teaching is not limited to sending all spirits toward dimension beyond this existence, but will come also to the heart of man to inspire him to live a life that is pleasant, worthy, and useful on this planet. The third era that in which you are living is the time of clarification of the great mysteries. Wise men and theologians will have to correct their knowledge in the face of the truth that I am revealing to you. This is the time when man will open his eyes to perceive the light of my wisdom, for the light-made doctrine will resurrect him spiritually to the true life. Men will try to deny the truth of my revelation, but the deeds, trials, and events will give voice and testimony to the truth that shall arrive on the lips of my people, as the great message of the third era. By means also of these writings, my doctrine will be spread over the world, for it is a legitimate means, which since early times I have inspired in my envoys. I only ask that you be jealous of my truth, and that you carry it to the hearts of men in the cleanest and simplest form. In that second era, my coming as a man was only believed in by a few hearts. Nonetheless, humanity later took the birth of the Savior as the beginning of a new era, and so too in this time, the beginning of my communication with you, or the coming of the Holy Spirit, shall be seen tomorrow as the beginning of another era. Listen to what Christ, the manifestation of divine love, tells you. Peace to men of good will, to those who love truth and spread the seed of love. My peace be with you. Chapter 8. The New Communities of Christ. Disciples, Apostles, Divine Envoys. Light and shadow in the congregations of the Revelation. If my word had been given to all nations, the majority would have rejected it, for vanity, materialism, and the false grandeur of men would not have accepted a doctrine that speaks of spirituality, humility, and brotherhood. The world is not yet prepared to understand love, and not all, therefore, would have been sensitive to my presence in this form. Just as Christ in that time sought a hollow of rock to be born as a man, today I found this corner of the earth that was disposed to hear me, and which bears a similarity to the grotto and manger that received the Son of God on that blessed night. The example of this humble people that choose their way without ministers to guide them, and that worship me without ceremonies or symbols, will be a wake-up call to those who sleep their night of centuries, and it shall be a stimulus for the regeneration and purification of many of my children. Under the shade of my doctrine, no throne will be built from which exalted men can dominate the spirits of their brothers. None will be crowned or covered in purple robes to try to occupy the place of the Lord, nor shall there arise confessors to judge, pardon, condemn, and pass sentence on the acts of humanity. Only I can judge a spirit from a just and perfect bench. I may send those who correct, teach, and guide, but I shall not send any to judge and punish. I have sent those who have been shepherds to humanity, but neither lords nor fathers. The only Father of the Spirit is I. I will form in this time a people who are jealous of my law, loving of truth and of charity. These people will be like a mirror in which others may see reflected the errors into which they have fallen. They shall not be the judge of any, but their virtues, works, and dutifulness will touch the spirit of all who cross their path, and will show the path to all who do not comply with my law. When these people are strong and numerous, they will attract to themselves the attention of their fellow men, for the cleanliness of their works and the sincerity of their worship must surprise humanity. Then men will ask, who are these who without temples know to pray in this way? Who has taught these multitudes to pray, adoring their God without feeling the need to raise altars for his worship? From where have these travelers and missionaries come, who like the birds neither sow nor reap nor spin and yet subsist? And I shall say to them, these people, poor and humble, but jealous of my law, and strong against the passions of the world, have not been prepared by any man. These multitudes that enjoy doing good, who are illuminated by inspiration, and know how to carry to the heart the message of peace and the touch of comfort, have not been taught by teachers or ministers of any cult of earth. For it is true what I tell you, that in this time there does not exist one single man in your world who could teach the worship of God with true spirituality. Truth does not reside in the splendor of rites, nor in wealth or earthly power, but being humble seeks as its temple the clean, noble, and sincere hearts who love that which is pure. Where are these hearts? I have called many of my children to be given different responsibilities, various missions within this work, and I have given them according to your gifts and advancement. And with all of these I have formed my people, my new apostolate. To some I have given the work of guides, and so that their work is not arduous and distressing, I have divided the people into congregations. To others I have given the gift of acting as spokesmen, so that they might transmit my inspiration, made human word, to these multitudes that gather to receive this wonder. I have given the privilege of seeing to some to make of them prophets and proclaim through them what is to come. And those who have received the mission of being the supporting pillars are those who must help the people in their pilgrimage, and who must be for the guides, as was the Cyrene, Simon of Cyrene, who helped Christ, and helped to carry the cross of their multitudes. Others have been graced with the gift of faculty and deeds, as instruments of the spiritual world have been prepared to transmit its messages, the analysis of my work, and also as possessors of the excuse me, sacred balm of healing, of comforting the sick, so that united they may pour forth charity to the needy by means of healthy spiritual emanations. I have named Golden Scribe, he who must print my revelations, teachings, and prophecies of this time in the book that I shall leave you. I have given the responsibility of being cornerstones to those who are to stand as examples of firmness. Where you going, May?
Are you not blocking this?
Oh, it was moving. Stability and strength among the people. In this their word, comfort, and example will be invariable, like rock. Now that this stage of my communication is at its end, I am judging all the charges and all those chosen to receive such great missions. I am calling them to enter into profound study and to know the results of their works. I accompany all in this hour of meditation. As in old times, many have been called, but few chosen. For I choose only those who are timely in the fulfillment of their missions, and to the rest I give light, so that they may know how to await the time when they too are chosen. How many there are who have only been called without it being time to choose them for a responsibility, and who have taken part among my laborers and disciples without their spirits having had the evolution indispensable to withstand the weight of this cross, nor their understanding the light required to permit the entry of my inspiration. What have many of them done? Once they were within the ranks of the chosen, they have profaned and poisoned the environment, contaminating others with their evil inclinations, lying, sowing discord, and profiting from my name and the gifts that I have deposited in my disciples. Do not attempt to find out who those individuals are, because you will not succeed. Only I, the divine judge, know who those individuals are, and I tell them through their conscience, be vigilant and pray, so that you will repent for your mistakes before it is too late. If you repent, I promise you that I will sit you spiritually at my table, and there will be a festival of reconciliation and forgiveness. That is the truth. Not all love my work, even while it is amongst them, nor have all arrived at understanding. Huh?
Where's Daddy?
He stepped outside. It for which reason I can tell you that some are of my work and others do their own. Those who come to me following from love, love my word, for they know it corrects them without coming to wound them, and points out their defects without shaming them. This makes them persevere in perfecting their practices. Those who, instead of trying to reach that perfection, pursue only adulation, superiority, praise, or a means of living, rather than seeking perfection of the spirit, are not resisting my word when it points out their defects, so they have to create a work distinct from mine, in which they will be free to do their own will. They have not understood that the entire multitude need do in the time that my manifestation lasts is to hear me with the greatest elevation, so that later they can analyze my message. I have said that the time of confusion, of disobedience will arrive, in which the laborer will raise up saying that my communication through human understanding will not cease. But the moment will come when my word is fulfilled, though man tries to interject to my will. How many errors in the way have been committed by many of those in whom I have confided a responsibility and a gift. How much incomprehension I behold being unleashed among my children after the year 1950, with a lack of understanding and foolishness of man. They hold back my charity, authority, and grace, and are therefore outside the true path of the law, of harmony, and of truth. Once again, Israel will not know itself, tribe from tribe. Once again, they will tear and wish to trample the clean and pure law I gave into their hands. Once again, Israel will seek the ancient paths to fall into idolatry and fanaticism. They will look to the sect and enter into confusion. Casiel, Casi, and darkness, and will be find satisfaction in the false and florid words given to them by men. The men of the religions and sect, upon seeing that Israel is divided, that Israel does not know itself and is weakened, will seek motives to tear away this priceless jewel, to tear away the ark of this new covenant, and say the next day that they are the true envoys before humanity and the representatives of my divinity, and words of warning to those who hear of the spiritualist work. I wish that when my communication has concluded, you have a well-defined idea of that which is in this doctrine, so that you may duly fulfill it, for up to this moment the true spiritualists have not arisen among the multitudes that have heard my word. Until now it has not been spiritualism that you have practiced, but rather a version of my work as
Sorry, my phone died.
you have conceived of it, but which is very far from
Can you
true
ask it to use the power bank to charge my phone?
spirituality. You will need to arm yourselves with the strength to accept that which has confused you. You must rise to amend your practices, seeking with a will that among you the truth and purity of my doctrine shine forth. Do not fear to change the outward part of your practices in worship without altering the essence of my teachings. Make use of the time that you still have to hear my teaching, so that it may fill you with light and grace. So that it may fill you with light and grace, so that you may advance firmly toward spirituality, an advance that you have not made, because of having continued within a cult of materialism and error. Until now you have lacked faith to renounce your forms, your rituals, and your symbols to seek me spiritually.
It's me.
Among the infinite, you have lacked the courage to be spiritualist and have conceived the way of seeming spirituality, hiding behind it your materialism and errors. I do not wish you to be hypocrites, but sincere lovers of the truth. It is therefore that I speak with great clarity, so that you may cleanse your lives and show the world the truth that is in this work. Do you say you are spiritualist? Then be so in truth. Do not speak of my doctrine while you do all that is contrary to it, for with your acts you will only confuse humanity.
Huh?
Above all,
It's raining hard, baby.
know that which is my work, what my law means, what your calling is, and how you must carry it out, so that if you do not have a guide worthy of marking your steps, you may be guided by conscience and by the knowledge of my doctrine that you have acquired. Thus you cannot blame another for any misstep or error. From the time that my communication by means of human understanding began, I have wished you to put into practice your gifts, and that you begin your spiritual mission so that, when the day of my departure arrives, you will have traveled part of the road and not feel too weak to begin the fulfillment of such a delicate mandate. Some have known how to interpret the divine idea and have made efforts to bring it to fulfillment, but there are also those, and they are the majorities, who have misunderstood the meaning of this work. These are the errors that I come to bring to the attention of these people, for I do not wish those who have been so long instructed to be mocked by humanity. Some are only interested in the essence of my word, and yearn for the progress and evolution of the Spirit, while others are pleased by my outward worship, so that while the former enjoyed receiving teachings about spirituality, others were displeased that their errors were mentioned. Only I know who will respond to me for all that which should have been known through my spokesman, but has been withheld. Meditate and understand that the unification that you need is spiritual, and that you will attain it when you arise above your passions and fanaticism. How can you create peace when each goes forth proclaiming his own teachings as the only truth while combating that of all others as false? Fanaticism is darkness, blindness, and ignorance, and its fruits can never be those of the light. Truly I tell you that if you do not unite, as is my will, humanity will disperse you and will thrust you from their breast if it is seen that your lives are distant from that which you preach. What will happen if men discover that in each place there exists a different form of worship and a different way of practicing my doctrine? I entrust to you the 3 last years of my communication, so that you may work for the union of this people, a unification that includes that which is spiritual as well as the outward, so that your labor, full of harmony and equality, may be the greatest proof that all of you in various places and different lands have been taught by one single Master, God. The true apostolate, the new apostles, do not attempt to put limits on this work, which is universal and infinite, nor must you put limits on your own spiritual development, for the farther you go on the road of good works in study, the greater the revelations you will receive. You will see the divine work arise from that which is simplest. You will see it manifested in all that has been created, and you will feel it throb within your being. This is the simplicity with which I come to teach the disciple of spiritualism, so that he too may be simple, like his master. Let the disciple persuade and convert by the truth of his words and the power of his works, without seeking to surprise anyone with mysterious powers or extraordinary faculties. The true disciple will be great because of his simplicity, He will understand his master and at the same time make himself understood by his brothers. The disciple of Jesus is he who subjugates with a persuading and consoling word, who raises up and resuscitates, making of the defeated victors over themselves and over adversity. The apostle of Christ cannot shelter selfishness in his heart, thinking only of his own suffering and worries, but neglects his own to concern himself with his brothers, with absolute confidence that nothing is neglected. For the Father immediately helps those who have abandoned their own worries to assist a child of the Lord that needs spiritual sustenance. And he who has known how to forget himself to bring a smile of hope, comfort to their sadness, or a drop of balsam for their pain, upon returning home shall find himself illuminated by the light that is benediction, joy, and peace. Many times have I said that you and those are the same ones. Come to taste the wine again, and eat of the bread at my table. Eat of the lamb, he is the origin of life. Come, you who hunger, thirst, and are unclean. Be strengthened and eat your fill, for then I will say to you, pick up your cross and follow me. At my table of this period an apostle will be the man as well as the woman. I will seat your spirit at this table. It has been the women who during this period have raised the spiritual banner before the multitudes. They have been leaving along the pathway the imprints of the apostle, zealous of the Father's law. In my new apostleship, the woman shall be alongside man, and there will be no age barrier in order to serve me. The same will it be for the adult as well as the child or the elder, for the same for the maiden as well as the mother. Because again I say to you, that it is your spirit whom I seek, and that he has left his infancy a long time ago. If I told you in the second era that my kingdom is not of this world, now I tell you that neither is yours. For this dwelling place, as you well know, is a temporary one for mankind. I come to show you the true life, that which has never been based in materialism. For that reason, men will once again rise up against my eternal doctrine, with my same teaching as always, which is of love, wisdom, and justice. Though that will not be immediately understood, humanity will once again judge me, and once again put me upon the cross. Yet I know that my teaching must pass through this to be recognized and loved. I know that my tenacious persecutors will later be my faithful and unselfish sowers, for I will give them very great proofs of my truth. The Nicodemus of the second era, a prince among the priests, who sought out Jesus to converse with him about wise and profound teachings, shall arise again in this time to serenely analyze my work and convert himself to it. That Saul, called Paul, who after persecuting me furiously became one of my great apostles, shall appear again in my road, and from everywhere shall come forth my new disciples, some fervent, others self-effacing. The present hour is of great importance. The time of which I am speaking comes upon you. The multitudes need those who know how to be strong during ordeals, those who are accustomed to the great battles of the world and of the Spirit. They are the ones who will be able to guide and lead humanity, for in their hearts there will be no desire to control or dominate anyone. There will be no selfishness in their hearts, for when they elevate themselves to communicate with the Lord, they will feel His charity and love, so that they may offer that same charity to their brothers. The invoice of God in all the world and in all times. The peoples of the earth have never been short of spiritual light. Truly I tell you, it is not only these people that have had prophets and envoys, for I have sent emissaries to all peoples to awaken them. You may judge their words by the light and truth of their doctrines, as well as by their similarity to what I have revealed to you. Some arrived before the coming of the Messiah, and others after my presence as a man, but all have carried a spiritual message to men. Those doctrines, like mine, have suffered profanations, for when their essence has not been altered, they have been mutilated or hidden from a mankind hungry for truth. One single truth and one single morality is what have been revealed to men through the envoys, prophets, and servants. Why do the different peoples have different concepts of truth, morality, and life? The truth, adulterated through time by humanity, will be re-established, and its light will shine with such strength they will seem to mankind like something new, though it is the same light that has always illuminated the way of evolution for the children of my divinity. Many are those who have died for speaking the truth. Many too have been subjected to torments for not wishing to still the voice that speaks inside them. Do not think that heaven has sent only those that speak of the Spirit or of love and morality. No, it has also sent those who offer the fine fruits of science, those bits of knowledge that give light to the lives of men, that lighten their burdens and relieve their distress. All of them have been my envoys. There are others too, who without bringing moral spiritual doctrines or scientific revelations, bring the message that teaches one to sense and admire the beauties of creation. They are messengers of mine who have the mission of bearing the light and balm for the hearts of those who weep. All of them have drunk up the bitterness of seeing the incomprehension of a world that is blind to the truth, of humanity insensible of beauty and good. Nonetheless, if I have told you that in this era all will be restored, if I have proclaimed that all will return to its proper path, and that all my teachings will be restored to their original essence, you may believe that a time of spiritual splendor in this world is near. Though you should not forget that before that happens, all will be judged and purified. Each time that some revelation was to come to men, I have sent forerunners or prophets to prepare them so that the light may be seen by them. However, do not believe that only those who bring messages for the Spirit are my envoys. No, disciples. Any who sows good in any of its forms is my envoy. These emissaries can be found in every walk of your lives, in religion, science, and among those who govern, as well as those who provide good teachings. My true servant never departs from the path that should be followed, but prefers to die on that road before turning back. His example is the seed of light in the life of his fellows, and his works are examples for others. Oh, if mankind only knew how to understand the messages that I sent to you through them, but it is not so. For there are many men who, having delicate missions in the world, turn their eyes from these great examples, and take the road that best pleases them. Moreover, what have you done, humanity, with those men I have sent to remind you of my way, the way of faith, which is wisdom, of love, and peace? You wish to know nothing of their messages, combating against them with that hypocritical faith that you have as your theories and religions. Your eyes did not wish to behold the light that was brought to you, as a message of love by each of my envoys, be he called prophet, seer, enlightened one, doctor, philosopher, scientist, or shepherd. These men have shone forth, and you have not wished to see their light. They have gone ahead of you, and you have not wished to follow their steps. They left for you an example of the road of sacrifice, pain, and of charity, and you feared to imitate them, not knowing that the pain of those who follow me is a gladness of the Spirit, a road of flowers, and a horizon full of promise. They did not come to smell the aroma of the flowers of the earth, nor to intoxicate themselves with the fleeting pleasures of the world, because the aspiration of their spirit was already not toward the impure, but toward that which is more elevated. They suffered, but they did not seek consolation, for they knew that they had come to give it. They expected nothing of the world, for they were awaiting, at the end of the struggle, the joy of beholding the resurrection of the faith and the life of the spirits of all those who had died to truth. Who are these beings of whom I speak to you? I speak of all those who have brought to you messages of light, of love, of hope, of health, of faith, and of salvation. The name they use does not matter, nor does the road where you saw them appear, nor the title they bore on earth. It is necessary that I tell you one more time that this people that is forming around my manifestation is not a people that the Father marks by loving more than other people of the earth, but rather if the Lord has turned his gaze upon them, it is because he has formed them with spirits that have been in the world each time that a new divine revelation descended. They are spiritual children of that people of Israel, a people of prophets, envoys, seers, and patriarchs, who better than they could receive me in this time, understand my manifestation, and testify to the fulfillment of my promises. I have descended to the bosom of the people of Israel, establishing the greatest number of them in this nation, Mexico. The others disseminated to all the nations sent by me, and with them I have communicated spiritually. These are my chosen ones, they who have kept faithful to me, who have not contaminated their hearts, and whose spirits can perceive my inspirations. Through their conduit, I am giving to the world a wealth of wisdom. Beloved children who have arrived in small numbers, I tell you truly, my perceptive gaze finds everywhere my chosen ones, those who feel in their spirits that now is the time of my presence. They have not heard my word as you have, but in their spirits hear a voice that tells them that I am once again amongst humanity. That I have come spiritually in the cloud. Some I will allow to behold me with the eyes of their spirits. The others I will cause to feel my love greatly, so that they feel the presence of my spirit. Soon the intuitive, the inspired, and the spiritually sensitive will arise, giving testimony before the nations of what they see, feel, hear, and receive through their spirits. I tell you once again that my people are not limited to those who have heard me through these spokesmen, for I have sent my servants to various parts of the earth to prepare the way and to clean the fields to which the sowers will come later. I strengthen and bless them, for their labor is difficult and their paths strewn with thorns, ridicule and mockery, calumny, and impiety follow them everywhere, but they, intuitive and inspired, know they have been sent by me and are willing to follow the path to its end in fulfillment of their mission. I invite you to enter into my kingdom. I am summoning all nations, but I know that not everyone will listen. Humanity has extinguished its lamp and walks in darkness. In those places where there is confusion, one of my enlightened messengers will arise to enlighten his surrounding. That messenger is a spiritual guardian who is alert in awaiting my signal to awaken and move humanity. Let the love of these envoys be a fruitful seed planted in your heart. Do not reject them if they present themselves to you in outward poverty. Listen to them, for they go in my name to offer you the perfect prayer, to liberate you from the chains of materialism that bind you, and to help you attain the spiritual freedom that elevates you to me. If any man should come among you saying that he is the Christ again made flesh, do not believe him. For upon proclaiming to you that I would return, I made you understand that this would be in spirit. If any say to you, I am the envoy of God, mistrust them, for the true emissaries will not brag nor shout of the mission that I have entrusted to them, but will give proof only by their works. Is it not right that men say that a tree must be known by its fruits? I do not forbid that you try the fruits of trees, but it is necessary that you be prepared to distinguish the good fruit from the bad. Those who love truth I shall place like lamps to light the path of their brothers. The times when you needed a spiritual guide in this world have passed. From this time forward, all who enter into this path will have no other road but that of my law, nor any other guide than their conscience. This does not mean that there will cease to be men and women of great light and strength who give aid through their example, and with their inspiration of the multitudes. If it were not so, I would have sent to the earth spirits like Moses or Elijah to trace the road for you and remind you of the law at every step. They help you, they watch over and accompany you, no longer in a human form, but from the spiritual. Who sees them? None do. But if you prepare, you will feel within your being the presence of the great spirits that have always been related to humanity and had great missions to fulfill there. My peace be with you. Second, retrospection of the first and second revelation. Chapter 9, Stories and Personages of the People of Israel. The story of original sin. The story of the first men that inhabited earth was passed from generation to generation until it was written down in the book of the first era. It is a living parable about those first beings that populated the earth. Their purity and innocence permitted them to feel the caress of Mother Nature. A warmth of friendship existed between all beings, and complete brotherhood between all creatures. In a divine parable, I inspired the first men to begin to have knowledge of their destiny, but the meaning of my revelations was poorly interpreted. When you were told of the tree of life, of the knowledge of good and evil, of which man ate, I only wish to make you understand that when man comes to have sufficient knowledge to distinguish between the just and unjust, and began to be responsible for his acts, from that time he began to gather the fruits of his works. You know that God said to man, grow, multiply, and replenish the earth. That was the initial law that you were given, O people later the Father would not ask men only to multiply and that the species continue to grow, but rather that their sentiments are ever more elevated and that their spirits begin a broad development and unfolding. Moreover, if the first law were that of the propagation of the human race, how can you conceive of the Father applying sanctions for obeying and fulfilling his mandate? People, is it possible that such a contradiction could exist in your God? Look at what material interpretation men gave the parable that spoke only of the awakening of the Spirit in man. Therefore, analyze my teaching, and do not say any more that you are paying the debt the first inhabitants acquired for disobedience to your Father. Have a more elevated idea of divine justice. This is the time in which you can understand me when I tell you, grow and multiply, and replenish the universe with your good works and elevated thoughts. I welcome all who wish to come to me, to all who seek perfection, free will, and original sin. You say to me that because of the freedom of will, you have fallen to faults and errors. I also say that through that gift you can infinitely elevate yourselves beyond the point from which you departed in the beginning of your elevation. In addition to the freedom of will, I endowed its spirit with my light in its conscience so that no one would be lost, but those who did not want to hear my voice or did not want to penetrate into their innermost in search of the spiritual light were quickly tempted by the countless beauties of the human existence. They lost the support of my love for their spirit, and they had to stumble and fall. Just one fault brought many painful consequences, and the fact is that imperfection does not harmonize with the divine love. Those who yielded and repented returned immediately to the Father and humbly asked Him to cleanse and liberate them from their sins committed. The Father received with infinite love and charity. He comforted their spirit, He sent them to correct their faults, and strengthened them in their mission. Do not think that everyone returned meek and repentant after the first disobedience. No, many arrived filled with arrogance or hate. Others with shame, realizing their guilt, tried to justify their faults before me, and far from purifying themselves through repentance and atonement, which is proof of humility, they chose to create for themselves a life of their own, choosing outside of the laws which my love dictates. Then my justice manifested itself not to punish, but to correct them, not to destroy, but to preserve them eternally, providing them with an ample opportunity to perfect themselves. How many of those first sinners still have not rid themselves of their blemishes, because fall after fall they kept descending more and more into the depths of an abyss from which only the practice of my law can save them. The flood, in the earliest times of humanity, there was innocence and simplicity in men, but as they multiplied due to their evolution under free will, their sins also continued to grow, and rather than their virtues, it was their frailty before my law that developed faster. It was then that I prepared Noah by communicating with him from spirit to spirit because I established this type of communication with mankind when man first came to dwell on earth. I said to Noah, I will send a great flood to earth to purify the spirit of man of all his sins. Build an ark and tell your children, their wives, and your grandchildren to go inside the ark. Also place a pair of animals from each species on earth this inside the ark. Noah was obedient to my command, and the cataclysm arrived in fulfillment of my word. The bad seed was pulled up by its roots, and the good seed conserved in my granaries, with which I formed a new humanity that bore within it the light of my justice. and knew how to comply with my law and lived practicing good customs. Perhaps do you believe that those individuals who suffered painful deaths perished both physically and spiritually? Truly I tell you, my children, they did not. Those spirits were saved by me, and they awoke before the judge of their own conscience. They then were prepared to return once again to the path of life in order to progress spiritually. The unselfishness of Abraham. It will not always be necessary for you to drain the cup of bitterness. It will be enough for me to see your faith, your obedience, your purpose, and intentions to obey my commandments, for me to free you from the most difficult moments of your trials. Remember that Abraham was asked for the life of his son Isaac, who he loved much, and that the patriarch, overcoming his pain and the love he felt for his child, prepared himself to sacrifice him as a proof of obedience, faith, love, and humility that you cannot yet understand. But he was not permitted to consummate the sacrifice of his son, because already in the depths of his heart he had proven his obedience to the divine will, and that was enough. Oh, how great was the rejoicing of Abraham when his hand was held back by a greater force, preventing him from sacrificing Isaac. Oh, how he blessed the name of his Lord, and marveled at his wisdom. In Abraham and his son Isaac, I gave you an image of what would be the sacrifice of the Redeemer. When he put the love that Abraham professed for me to the test, asking of him that he sacrifice his son, his beloved Isaac, by his own hand. In that act, if you know how to meditate upon it, you will find a similarity to what later was the sacrifice of my only son for the salvation of the world. Abraham was the representation of God, and Isaac the image of Jesus. At that moment, the patriarch thought that if the Lord asked him for the life of his son, it was so that the blood of the innocent might wash away the failings of the people. And despite loving deeply he who was the flesh of his flesh, obedience to God and charity and love for his people were stronger in him than the life of his beloved son. The obedient Abraham was about to unleash the mortal blow at his son. But the moment when, racked with anguish, he raised his arm to sacrifice him, my power stopped him, ordering him to sacrifice a lamb in place of his son, so that the symbol would remain as a testimony to love and obedience. The ladder to heaven in Jacob's dream. Do you know what meaning is contained in the ladder that Jacob beheld in his dreams? The ladder represents the life and evolution of the spirits. The body of Jacob slept at the moment of revelation, but his spirit was awake. He had ascended towards the Father, seeking prayer as the means, and upon entering into the regions of light, he came to receive a celestial message that would remain as a testament of revelations and spiritual truths for his people, which is all humanity, for Israel is not immaterial, but a spiritual name. Jacob saw the ladder with its base on earth, and it stopped touching the sky. This shows that the road of spiritual elevation that begins on earth through the flesh and ends up uniting its light and essence with that of the Father, apart from all material influence. The patriarch saw that by that ladder angels ascended and descended, representing the incessant incarnation and disincarnation, the continuous coming and going of the spirits in search of light, or also on their mission of restoration and purification of themselves, to elevate themselves a little more upon returning to the spiritual world. It is the road of spiritual evolution that leads to perfection. That is why Jacob beheld the representative form of Jehovah at the top of the ladder, indicating that God is the goal of your perfection, of your aspirations, and the supreme price of infinite joy is the compensation for arduous struggle, prolonged suffering, and perseverance in reaching the bosom of the Father. Amongst the vicissitudes and trials, the Spirit has always found the opportunity to earn merit for the ascent. There in each trial, the ladder of Jacob has been always represented, inviting you to climb one more step. A great revelation, O disciples, was that, for in it the spiritual life was spoken of at a time when the awakening of the Spirit to the worship of the divine, the elevated, the pure, the good and true had barely begun. That message could not have been for one single family, or even for one single people. Its essence was spiritual, and therefore was universal. For that very reason the voice of the Father said to Jacob, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou lie, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed, and thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south, and in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Joseph and his brothers. Joseph, son of Jacob, had been sold by his own brothers to some merchants who were traveling to Egypt. Joseph was still young, but had already given evidence of a great gift for prophecy. Envy took charge of his brothers, who got rid of him, believing that they would never see him again. But the Lord, who watched over his servant, protected him and made him important to the Pharaoh of Egypt. Many years later, when the world was stricken by drought and hunger, Egypt, guided by the counsel and inspirations of Joseph, had stored enough provisions to withstand the trial. It was then that the sons of Jacob arrived in Egypt to search for food. Great was their consternation when they recognized that their brother Joseph had become minister and counselor to the Pharaoh. Upon seeing him, they fell from their feet to their knees, repenting of their transgression, and recognized that the prophecies of their brother had been realized. He who had been given up for death was there before them, full of power, virtue, and wisdom. The prophet whom they had sold was showing them the truth of the prophecy that the Lord had placed on his lips as a child. The brother they had humiliated, selling him, was pardoning them. Do you understand, people? Now you know why I have said to you this day, when will you recognize me, as Joseph was recognized by his brothers? The people of Israel's pilgrimage with Moses through the desert. In the first era, Moses was at the head of Israel in guiding them through the desert for 40 years to the land of Canaan. But from disobedience, lack of belief, and materialism, some blasphemed, others reneged, and yet others rose in rebellion. Moses, confronted with such a situation, told them with prudence and patience not to offend the supreme will, but to be humble and obedient before that Father, who, without considering their disobedience, had made manna fall from the sky and water spring forth from the rocks. Moses had offered sufficient proof that the true God was with him. But the people wanted more evidence. The messenger, taking the multitudes to the slopes of Mount Sinai, called upon the power of Jehovah, and the Lord, hearing him, granted him great proofs and miraculous things. The people wanted to hear and to see the one to whom Moses listened and the one whom he perceived. Through his faith, I manifested myself to those people in a cloud and had them listen to my voice for hours and hours. But it was so potent the men felt themselves dying of fear. Their bodies shook and their spirits trembled before that voice of justice. Then the people begged Moses to plead to Jehovah not to speak any longer to his people, for they could no longer listen to him. They recognized that they were still too small to communicate directly with the Eternal One. Forge your spirit in the great combats of life, just as did the people of Israel in the desert. Do you know how great is the desert, which with its harsh sun and burning sands appears to have no end? Do you know what loneliness and silence are, and having to maintain vigilance because enemies watch? Truly I tell you, it was there in the desert that the people knew the greatness it was to believe in God and learn to love Him. What could that people hope for from the desert? Nonetheless, they had all: bread, water, a home in which to rest, and an oasis and sanctuary wherein to elevate their grateful spirits toward the Father and Creator. The struggle of Elijah for the true God. In the first era, Elijah came to earth and found that humanity was practicing idolatry and did not believe in God. The world was being governed by kings and priests, and both had departed from the obedience to divine laws and were guiding their people along paths of confusion and falsehood. They had erected altars to different gods which they worshipped. Elijah appeared in that time and spoke to them with words of justice, telling mankind, "Open your eyes and see that you have disrespected the law of the Lord. You have forgotten the example of his messengers and have fallen into a worship which is unworthy of the living and powerful God. It is necessary that you awaken, that you see and recognize him. Eliminate your idolatry and lift your eyes above every figure with which you have represented him." Elijah heard my voice, which said to him, "Depart from the wicked people of that nation. Tell them that rain will not fall for a long time, not until you order it so in my name." And Elijah said, "It will not rain until my Lord appoints the hour, and my voice orders it." And thus saying, he departed. From that day forth the land was dry. Many normally rainy seasons passed without rain. There were no signs of water in the sky. The fields felt the drought. The cattle began to perish. Men unsuccessfully dug into the earth, looking for water to quench their thirst. Rivers dried up, overcome by the rays of the red-hot sun. The grass withered, and men cried out to their gods, asking for rain to return to them in order to sow and harvest the seed which fed them. Elijah had departed by divine mandate. He prayed and awaited the will of his Lord. Men and women began to leave their lands in search of new places which did not lack water. Wherever one looked, there were caravans, and all the land was dry. Years went by, and one day, when Elijah elevated his spirit to the Father, he heard his voice saying, "Seek out the king, and when I give you the sign, the waters once again will fall over the land." Filled with obedience, Elijah humbly went before the king of that nation and showed his power before the worshippers of the false gods. After that he spoke about the Father and of his power. Then the signs appeared: lightning, thunder, and fire were seen in the sky, followed by an abundance of rain. Once again the fields became green, and the trees were filled with fruit, and there was abundance of many things on earth. Faced with this proof, the people awakened and remembered their father, who called and warned them through Elijah. The 12 tribes of Israel do not believe that prophets, forerunners, and spirits of light have existed only in the bosom of the people of Israel. To other peoples also I have sent some of these, but men took them as gods, not as envoys, and under their teachings created religions and cults. The people of Israel did not understand the mission they had with the other peoples, and slept in a bed of blessings and complacency. The Father had formed them as a perfect family in which one tribe had the mission of defending the people and maintaining peace. Another worked the earth, and another were fishermen and navigators. To yet another was entrusted to spiritual worship, and so on. Each one of the 12 tribes that made up the people carried out a different mission that together served as an example of harmony. And truly I say to you, the spiritual gifts that you possess in those first times you have still. The prophets and first kings of Israel, the prophets and spoke with great truth. They came to earth almost always in times of great confusion and straying, admonishing the peoples, inviting them to repentance and to make amends, proclaiming great trials of justice if they did not turn back to the good, and other times predicting blessings for observation and obedience to the law, the divine law. But what those prophets spoke of was an exhortation toward the practicing of good, justice, and respect for one another. They did not come revealing the life of the Spirit, its destiny and evolution, not even Moses himself, who I chose to be made my representative, and through whose channel I gave the law for all time, spoke of the spiritual life. The law of the Father encompasses wisdom and justice, teaches men to live in peace, to love and respect one another, and make yourselves worthy before me as men. But Moses did not show humanity that which is beyond the threshold of bodily death, nor what the restitution of the disobedient spirits is, or the price for those that are prudent and jealous of their mission. Later, David reigned full of gifts and inspiration, and in his moments of elevation, in his ecstasy, he heard the hymns and spiritual songs with which he formed the psalms to invite the people of Israel to pray and give the best offerings of their hearts in tribute to the Lord. Yet David, with all his love and inspiration, could not reveal to the people the marvelous existence of the spirits, nor their evolution or their goals. And again Solomon, who succeeded him in his reign, and who also showed the great gifts of wisdom and power that had been given to him, and for which he was loved and admired, and whose counsel, judgments, and proverbs are still remembered today. If his people had approached him to ask, "How is the spiritual life? What is beyond death? What is the spirit?" Solomon, with all his wisdom, could not have answered, "My peace be with you."